Oh, it's on mute. Thing. Yes, so we had muted it. Yes. Okay, Peter.
Okay, this is the duly noticed public meeting of the Advisory Committee of non-voting taxpayers of Nantucket. I'm Peter Halley, the chairman. Let's just go around and make sure that we have a quorum here. Pat Booster, Gene Briskman, Lynn Flitsky, Michael Cody, Steve Furman, Peter Kahn, Peter Halley, and Kathy Baird. And we have on the screening Gary Beller and Donald Green, and I cannot see if there's somebody else, but clearly we have a Donna Martino. So we have a quorum. First order of business is approval of the agenda for today's meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? And a second? Second. All those in favor? And that it is approved. The second item is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Any comments on those minutes? The motion to approve. And any second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anybody opposed? No, okay, they're approved. Okay, so thank you for coming here. I apologize for waking everybody up with my whistle. It's the first time it's worked in years. We are fortunate today to have as our guest speaker Rachel Freeman, who is the new 7-month-old, is it, or 8-month-old, maybe 9 months old.
I think we're getting into month 9.
Executive director of the Land Bank. Rachel is not a unknown quantity. She worked at the Land Bank for 10 years before rising to the executive directorship. And it is clear from the record that this is a merit-based promotion. So we're very happy to have you here, and with all the experience that you represent and that we are the beneficiaries of. So if you
Thank
would
you so much.
tell us about the Land Bank and the issues that are facing it.
Sure, I would love to. I'm desperately trying to get my PowerPoint on. Oh my gosh.
Timing.
This is fantastic. Okay, we'll see if this actually works. But this is a good start. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Rachel Freeman. I am the new executive director of the Nantucket Islands Land Bank. And it's been a fascinating and interesting and challenging and fun 9 months. So that's will be my opener. I'm going to start today by just thanking you for this opportunity. Nope.
But you can still thank us.
Okay, I can still thank you for the opportunity. We're gonna see if this is, I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but we'll see. I'm gonna thank you for the opportunity to speak today. What I'm hoping for today is to talk to you not just about what the Land Bank does that everybody knows, but to talk about the range of things that the Land Bank does, you know, both for and with the Nantucket community. There's a ton of things that we all do that we understand in-house, right? That just really don't get communicated very well to the public at large. And I feel like this is a great opportunity to really review some of those things and talk more in depth about them. So I'm going to go through a little bit about the history of the Land Bank and how it was created, and then I'll go into, you know, what the Land Bank's accomplished in the last 40 years. And I think there's, you know, mutual agreement that the Land Bank has really done an unbelievable job as to what it was set out to do, right? We've followed our mission and, you know, followed the act and really been successful. And then that brings us to sort of the next 40 years, right? What is the next 40 years of the Land Bank going to look like? And this is a very good question that the commission is really thinking hard about. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So
Great.
Without further ado, let's see if it works. All right, I'm going to keep finagling this.
So you're not sharing your screen.
I know, I'm not sharing my screen and I'm not, okay, so I haven't actually done anything that I expected this to do, so what I really want to do is do this. Can I cheat and do this?
Sure.
Okay,
If it works.
no, it went away. This is so weird. I'm sorry, if you can give me one more minute, that would be fantastic. Let's see. I'm gonna close out of this for a second and reopen it. And then I'm going to share it. Okay, first I'm going to share it.
Getting out of this, you know. When you're done.
I'll do the best I can. Okay, so,
Sharing is difficult for a lot of people, particularly us apparently.
it's a skill we're supposed to have learned early on in life, but it can be incredibly challenging. Okay, I believe this is sharing. And, can you tell? Can you tell if it's
I
sharing?
can log in.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're sharing the right screen because in this setup, you can share any number of screens. So, if you are online and it looks like we're not sharing a Nantucket Islands Land Bank PowerPoint, please let us know.
It looks great.
Uh,
Looks great.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so now I'm actually gonna start. So let's see, I'm going to go to our next slide. All right. So the history of the land bank is integrally involved in the history of Nantucket, which shouldn't be surprising to anyone. As everyone knows, Nantucket's been special since its inception. It was the whaling capital of the world for a long time. And then when that started to wind down in the mid 1800s was when it really started to become more of a tourist destination. People recognized how beautiful the island was, and they started to think it was a fantastic place to come to. That gradually ramped up over time, right, into the early 1900s. And then by the time we got to the 1950s, it really became that these large parcels of land were transitioning hands, being broken up into smaller lots, being sold off, and building was really increasing. And as a result, what you started to see was things like the formation of the Nantucket Conservation Foundation in 1963. So the Nantucket Conservation Foundation is a private nonprofit land trust, which owns approximately 9,000 acres on the island. And they were initially created by by 9 different people who basically were islanders or seasonal residents that were concerned about the rapid rate of growth on the island, right? So they said, let's do something about it. So this was really a response to change, right, on the island. We started to see change, people were concerned, they created the Conservation Foundation. Throughout the 1960s, growth continued. And the Conservation Foundation, let me just back up for 1 second, was really formed to maintain and benefit natural resources and the ecology of Nantucket. So they're highly focused even today on science research, rare and endangered species and habitats. So as things continued to roll through the 1960s, we got to the 1970s and Nantucket said, okay, we really need to be looking at this. There's a lot of growth happening on the island. Let's develop a building and zoning code, and a building department. We'll create the NPEDC, which is the Nantucket Planning Economic Development Commission, which I'm sure many of you know about. And they're really designed to guide big picture issues. The NPDC was created in 1973, and then Bill Klein was hired in 1974. He was the first director of planning on Nantucket, but he was actually hired to be the head of the NPEDC. Bill Klein was the director of planning on Nantucket for 17 years. Over the course of those 17 years, he really made it his mission to explore different ways to, I'll use the word sustainable, although that's broad, to make Nantucket sustainable, right? And so some of the different ideas that he came up with were highlighted in what I believe was the first goals and objectives for balanced growth in 1983. It was I think like a 23-page document, and it was really developed as a think tank, where lots of different people came together and said, how do we go about doing this? And it highlighted the major goals and objectives. I just love to go through quickly because it's interesting how they're really, really still things that are occurring today. So, there was protecting the environmental quality, addressing infrastructure challenges. Nantucket's rapid growth had put a strain on existing infrastructure, managing economic development, and really looking to create a stable, sustainable economy for the island, supporting Nantucket's permanent and varied population, basically aiming to ensure that Nantucket would remain a place for more than just the wealthy, as it was described. And really what that gets to is affordable housing, right? And then creating the Nantucket Islands Land Bank. So this was Bill Klein who created the Nantucket Islands Land Bank. And it came from this goals and objectives for balanced growth. The land bank itself was basically approved at annual town meeting in spring of 1983. So it was voted in by the people of Nantucket. It was a vote that was almost unanimous, which hardly ever happens on Nantucket these days. If you've all watched town meeting recently, you'll see. So it was 466 in favor to 1 that wasn't in favor. And then it gets interesting because this is an act of the state legislature. So this goes straight up to the legislature, and it was approved at the state legislature with the help of Governor Dukakis in December 1983. And so sometimes you'll hear people say the land bank was created in 83. Sometimes you'll hear 84. This is why, because I think it was like December 31st, 1983 at 10 p.m. or something ridiculous like that, right? So it was then brought back to special town meeting on island for final approval in January of 1984. And then Martha's Vineyard said, this is a great idea. Let's do this too. So, and they created their own land bank in 1986. The structure of the land bank is interesting in that because it's an act of the state legislature, we're actually overseen by a body called the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, abbreviated EEA, which is a department of the governor in Boston. So that is actually our overarching body that is responsible for overseeing the land bank. So that means that we have a lot of interaction, or I have had in the last 9 months, a lot of interaction with state level policymakers, far more than I ever expected. So that's been an interesting experience for me. So this is really our governance and structure. We are governmental. And so we're actually part of the county government, if you want to get into details. I don't, on Nantucket, that's interesting because county and town are one and the same. So, there's basically what it boils down to is there's a ton of overlap between the land bank and the town, but we are not part of the town, but we are governmental. We're, as everyone knows, funded by public dollars, a real estate transfer fee, which has been a highly successful model on Nantucket. Again, we're overseen by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And through the legislative act, what was created was the Land Bank Act, right? And that is where we get our direction, and interpretations of the Land Bank Act are provided by our attorney and EEA, right? So if we want to do something that's outside of our act, we have to go ask EEA, which is the Section 6 approval process. We have to say, Secretary Cooper, who's currently the head of EEA, what do you think about us doing this? And we write in a request for an opinion, and they'll provide back an opinion. So that's the way the land bank operates on a state level. And locally, we have 5 publicly elected commissioners. These are our commissioners. And we made them all get headshots so that we could publicize them so that everyone knows who they are. Christina Jelemy is currently our chair, and Mark Donato is our vice chair. Neil Patterson is our treasurer, John Stackpole, and Alan Reinhard. Mark Donato is our most recent addition to the commission, and Christina after that. Neil, John, and Alan have all been engaged for quite a long time. It's a nice mix. Each one of these people has a 5-year term. They are publicly elected officials. They do respond. They're extremely responsive to public comment. So I would highly recommend, if you have a concern, to reach out to a commissioner. They feel like they are politicians and it's their responsibility through stewards of community dollars to listen to people and to hear what they say and what the needs are for the community. So I would really encourage you to interact with these guys if there's something that you would like to discuss. Land bank staff, we have 18 year-round employees right now. We gained probably 3 or 4 in the summer, but not a ton of seasonal staff. These are focused in administration, which is administration of finance, really, outreach, property management, environmental and agricultural resources. And we're a highly collaborative organization that really works where there's a ton of crossover because we are pretty small. In addition to that, the land bank owns 2 golf courses, as everyone knows, My Comet and Sconset Golf. And those we have what's called an owner management contract with NGM Inc. or Morningstar Golf. And so they actually run the 2 golf courses. That's primarily overseen by Matt Galvin and Sean Oberly, who's local and on the island at all times. Matt travels a lot. And they have about 40 to 45 year-round employees. So when you put it all together, it's actually somewhat of a substantial organization. I'll touch on this later as well. But as far as housing goes, this means between the 2 groups that we're housing probably about 50 year-round islanders and probably another 50 to 60 seasonal staff. So that is something that the organization has prioritized. This is maybe a map you've seen a lot, but I just think it's always good to bring it back. Nantucket is a highly conserved island, right? The amount and percentage is debatable. We have really started to delve into it. We don't have an answer yet. And mostly that's because it really depends how you define conservation. One of the areas that we talk about a lot is like the airport. They have hundreds of acres of open land, but is it truly conservation? Not really. So we need to really delve into these definitions and just explore how we're going to define it. The Conservation Foundation is in red, and they are the largest landholder on Nantucket, and the Nantucket Land Bank is the 2nd largest landholder, and you can see our properties are here in green. Again, they own around 9,000 acres. We own 3,400. And other large landholders include the Trustees of Reservation over on Great Point Co. 2, and Mass Audubon is probably next. And they own part of Gardner Farm, which they call Lost Farm, and then a really kind of a large area out over by Sacajah Pond.
If you define the land as land that can be built on, as opposed to conservation land, what is a ballpark? How much of Nantucket is out of circulation from a building point of view?
So I can't actually speak to that because I haven't ever looked at it that way, but they just recently did the build out study at the NPEDC where they addressed exactly that. And they discussed numbers of buildable units. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I would direct you to that study because it really looks at that. And that was exactly what that is what would Nantucket, what's left on Nantucket to be built upon.
Right.
So, yeah, and it's a good question. So now moving on to land bank's last 40 years, the land bank has acquired approximately 3,476 acres of public land. It has been, like I said, wildly successful. The land bank has done exactly what they've set out to do. But we all are aware that maybe there's not a lot of land left for acquisition on Nantucket. The commission's aware. It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of community needs on Nantucket. And so there's a large amount of conservation land, and that's absolutely fabulous and fantastic, right? But there's a lot of community needs and there's a finite amount of space. So, these are all discussions the commission is having. I'm going to run through quickly some of the different types of properties we have. Maybe you know all this, but it's always fun to say. We also have a ton of pretty pictures, so I wanted to share them. It's kind of easy when you have my job to get pretty pictures. So my comment Sconset golf courses, my comment is sort of our, while they're both public, my comment is kind of our higher end golf course, where Sconset is really for beginners and meant to be achievable cost wise. The Nantucket Racket Sports Association, this is one that not that many people know about. We have begun, or they have begun an expansion, and they're looking at putting in 4 new pickleball courts and 2 padel courts, which nobody knows what padel is, but I will tell you it was in the New York Times last week. So I was like, the new up and coming rage. So we're ahead of the curve, okay? Anyway, so this is great. They have worked incredibly hard. They've generated CPC funds, the land bank's working with them to support this project, and they are licensing land bank land, and they've been there for some time and are doing a great job. This project is starting now. So this will be built this fall.
Where's it gonna be?
So this is Hinsdale, the road. Yeah, please tell me if you want me to, should I explain where all these things are? I can. So this is Hinsdale Road, which is off of Nobodier Farm Road. This is behind the Nobodier Farm playing fields where they play soccer and lacrosse and the turf field is. It's tucked way out of the way. It is also behind the Great Harbor Yacht Club facility that is on Nobodier Farm Road and the new school. This is a public club, but it is public. Right, so they have opportunities for public play. And it's about finding out where those are, and their website's pretty good. They're redoing it to make it even better, but it's someplace that you can drop by and play. So we have 2 playgrounds, Codfish Park Playground in Sconset and our wildly popular Discovery Playground on Old South Road. The fun thing about this is that it is completely accessible. So that means that anybody can use the playground. The other thing that's neat about our playgrounds is particularly the Discovery Playground. We see the biggest diversity of demographics of people using them in terms of age and economics, and like everybody uses a playground, right? We see intergenerational play happening. It's just really an interesting phenomenon. Behind the playground, also little known, tucked away, is the labyrinth. So this is if you're, not into climbing and running and jumping, and you just want a little bit of meditation. Also, in between the Discovery Playground and the labyrinth is our first community garden that the land bank is overseeing. The Hinsdale Community Garden is really a neat project, and it showed us what the need is for things like this. We have a small number of plots here that you can see. There was about 253 applicants for these plots. So there's a lot of people that want space. We also prioritize people who didn't have access to backyards right now, just as a starting place. There is another community garden on Nantucket. The plots are much larger. They're about 20 by 20. It's fantastic. Again, it's licensed by a group that runs themselves pretty much. We do help them, but they run themselves. But this was meant to be people who are working all day, and you come home and you have just enough time to grow lettuce and harvest it and call it good, and then go to bed. So I have a few other fun agricultural pictures. Oops. Okay. These were all taken on farms that are on land bank property. So Fogtown Farm, Washashore Farm, my grandfather's farm, Berry Patch Farm, Moorzen Farm. I'm sure I'm missing some, Eat Fire Spring Farm. These are all farms that are located on land bank property. And they're run by these independent farmers, and they're providing local produce and local food sources for our island, which is huge. And they are all people who work incredibly hard and really take pride in what they do. And it's pretty phenomenal. So the other thing that's really interesting, because I know there's been a lot of talk lately about food insecurity, is that there's been a huge push by Nourish Nantucket to collaborate with local farmers when they have excess produce and make sure that that's getting to the food pantry, which is just a really neat connection to see. So a lot of these farmers are right now, because we're kind of at the tail end of the summer season, selling extra crops to the food pantry at reduced costs, which is fantastic. Shout out to the farmers. This is the Millbrook Heritage Orchard. We, on Monday, will be harvesting apples with the Girl Scouts who are going to do this as a project, and they are also going to be provided to the food pantry. We also have a number of the apples at our Island Fair today and a fun table out there. Plug for the Island Fair. My sister-in-law runs it. She does a really good job. And it didn't rain this year, thank God. Land Bank has a huge amount of beaches. Bill Klein, in one of his, speeches early on in the 80s, basically said Nantucket has 88 miles of beaches and 1.5 miles are public. Over time, that has really changed. This is one of the things that makes Nantucket so desirable, is the ability to go drive somewhere, pull up, put your towel down, and get out and go to a beach. And so this is just an incredible asset. The land bank owns any number of beaches, which are, again, our property management crew maintains all of this stuff every day. So that's huge. In addition to beaches, we have really kind of delved into pocket parks lately, which are more downtown and provide places for people to use. And the Fair Street Park and Easy Street Park are packed always. Right? These are opportunities for people who are downtown to just sit, gather, have a cup of coffee or whatever, tea, and relax. And it's really a niche that's specifically for downtown. This is our favorite Creeks Preserve, which everyone loves. And this is the one that the kind of large park that's at the Rotary. It has a fantastic trail that's like aggregate embedded concrete, which means that everyone can walk around it. A lot of people do laps in the morning, and it has a pretty phenomenal view overlooking the creeks. I am coming to an end, don't worry.
The long trail.
Yes, right, it's a long trail. So we do, I told you there was too many pretty pictures, right? So we have any number of trails. We have miles and miles of trails, which people are welcome to use. And we encourage people to get out on our trails. We do have the Cross Island hike coming up on the 27th, which I have maps for. We love having anybody come do it. And you don't have to do the whole thing. The whole thing can be daunting, but even getting out and doing some of it is fantastic. And this is, in addition to the Cross Island hike, we have the Coast to Coast Trail, which is laid out across the island always, right? And so it's a permanent fixture and people can hike from east to west. It's only set up from east to west, sunrise to sunset. It's almost impossible to make it go both ways because of the way the signage is laid out and not have people get lost.
People
But
get lost anyway. Let me tell you.
so the Cross Island hike is fantastic in that we are there to try and help people not get lost. We're really trying. We're doing better and better at signage. And anyways, it's a great take to do some or all of it. So that is a summary of just like a broad brush of the different types of properties that the land bank has. It is a little bit of something for everyone, and it really is what the land bank has done over the past 40 years, right? Is create these community public spaces, giving everyone a sense of place. Some people like to say that one of our jobs is to keep Nantucket, right? While everything else is going on in the background. So I like that phrase, and I'm gonna run with it a little bit. Do you want me to do something about this? 2 people entered the waiting room.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
well,
See them. Where'd they go?
where'd they go? I don't know where they went. All right, well, they'll be back. So I just want to give you an idea, since that's sort of what we've done for the past 40 years, where we're looking towards for the future. And this is a big question, and it's not to be answered today. And I am going to let you know that we're really just on the cusp of starting to ask this question. Since I came to be executive director, it became really apparent that this was a huge question that needed to be asked, right? Organizations evolve all the time, communities evolve, and it would be unwise to put our heads in the sand, you know, and say, no, we just need to keep doing the same thing over and over, right? It's time to take a step back and say, you know, what does Nantucket need? What does that look like? How can the land bank play a role in it within our act now? And, you know, how do these collaborations work? So that's really where the Land Bank Commission is in the process. Right now we have an advisory committee that's just staff, really, and two commissioners. But the role of the advisory committee is to help design a planning process to answer these questions, right? So this is how early we are in this phase. We're public, we have public meetings. This will be coming to a public meeting. I do an update about what the advisory committee is talking about at every land bank meeting. But the outcome and the goal is to really explore what the next 40 years of the land bank look like. So one thing that I just mentioned, and I just showed you all our properties, and it's this huge wide range of properties. One of the things that really does take a lot of our time is operation and maintenance of existing holdings. This is just an allocation of operating expenses for fiscal year 25 that we looked at, and it's a broad brush, but really we looked at different ways that we spent our time. And, you know, it's property and cyclical maintenance, forest management, habitat management, mitigation management, structures and facilities and housing. And, you know, this is well over $2 million. And we have, you know, multiple staff who are spending every day out there to try and make sure the land bank properties are safe and in tip-top shape for the public. I'll delve into all of these a little bit more. Again, I wanted to tell you that probably the most rapidly growing piece of this is structures and facilities, because we are growing housing, right? We have acquired more housing. The land bank used to not be buildings oriented. We do not take down houses now. We retain houses, we move houses. You know, one of our goals is to make sure that things are reused on the island and not to remove housing from the pool of existing housing. Another rapidly growing area is forest management, and this is something that our Natural Resources Department is really working on. It involves fire reduction, which is huge. We had a number of brush fires, all small, thank goodness for the fire department this summer. And, you know, the drought definitely contributed to that. So we feel like the combination of the risk of the southern pine beetle, which is on the vineyard, but luckily we don't have them yet, you know, decimating our pine forests, in addition with fire risk and just sort of forest ecological health, really makes forest management an important part of what we're doing. I'm going to expand on this mitigation management in a minute, because it's maybe the most confusing thing that we do. So in terms of environmental stewardship, we basically we have pockets, and this is just an example of some of them that we're really highlighting right now. And then we have a series of projects within each of these topics, right? So we have harbor water quality improvements, and we're really focused on that. How can we be improving harbor water quality? Because we're not a group that really works in the harbor, what we've discovered is stormwater is the key for us, right? So we work very closely with the town stormwater department, and we're doing a lot of different marsh restorations and nature-based solutions to explore how we can filter stormwater before it goes into the harbor. I just touched on forest management, pond health. I thank you, Bob. I don't know if you guys know Bob Williams, but he started the Pond Coalition, who really began and initiated the concept that pond health mattered on Nantucket, which is just huge. We've continued that. We do harmful algae bloom monitoring. We are working with the town on a potential dredge project for My Comment Pond. And we work quite a bit with the Sacajah Homeowners Association, and we've done some swales out there again to reduce stormwater coming into the pond. So mitigation management, like I said, is maybe the most confusing thing we do. This is related to environmental permitting. So Nantucket is really interesting in that there's almost every area of Nantucket is considered priority habitat, which means that it's regulated by the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. Okay, so anytime the town wants to do something or anyone wants to do something, you usually have to permit through them. The land bank's really engaged in doing the permitting and doing the management that they require, right? That's what mitigation management is. We do management and permitting. We've been involved with the permitting and hold the permits and are doing the follow-up management for the industrial park off New South Road, for the Myconic Golf Course, for the Surfside Sewer Treatment Facility, the wastewater treatment facility, for the Nobody or Farm Road playing fields. And we're looking at expanding this in the future. You know, can we be the people who do the mitigation management for the DPW, for the town, if they need infrastructure projects, right? We're good at this. This is something we do well. And without this piece of the puzzle, these projects can't move forward. So that's actually a way that we play with the town quite a bit. Let's see. So can we go 1, 2? Maybe. Hey, there we go. I think this is the most important part of our next 40 years. And this is where we start to say, you know, how are we thinking about our involvement and engagement in the Nantucket community? And these are examples. Some of them are things we're exploring now. Some of them are things that we've done. But, you know, leaning in on these collaborations, there's some major issues on Nantucket, and that's not, you know, unique to Nantucket, where it really requires everyone to participate. You know, it requires more than the town. It requires more than the land bank. It requires more than the affordable housing entities, right? These are all things that need to be solved at an island-wide level. And what's the land bank role in each one of these? And so these are some of the different things that we're looking at. I think you've probably read a lot this week in the newspaper about deer processing. We are working with the town DPW and Park and Recs to see where, and I wouldn't say we found the sweet spot yet, but where can the land bank play a role in, you know, facilitating what they do? We have an outdoor recreation component of our act, right? So this is a good fit. We're working on expanding mitigation to support town projects. Affordable housing is something we're looking at ways to collaborate continually. You know, how do we increase that? And coastal resiliency initiatives is another one. Coastal resiliency and climate change is something that aren't going to be solved by any one individual or any one group. And so, you know, how can we collaborate? We're looking at some senior citizen health and accessibility concepts. And last but not least, sort of collaborative acquisitions. So I think really what I just want to say in summary is that, you know, we're doing this planning process. The land bank is not purely conservation and acquisition focused. You know, we're much broader than that. We're aware of community needs and community issues. And, you know, the commission is really thinking through what the next 40 years could look like that could be beneficial and how the land bank can be beneficial and an asset to the Nantucket community, because that's what it's meant to be. That's why it was started. And so that's my talk.
Wow. That was a lot.
I think it's 15 minutes you wanted, and I think I went over, sorry.
It's very, well, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
It was worthwhile.
Okay.
And it was very, I think, a good expansive view of what you do, because as you ended up, you said, you know, so that everybody doesn't think all we do is acquire land. And I think that is certainly a lot of the popular thought about the land bank and some concern.
Right.
Because one could say that you've done it. You know,
Right.
you've really done what you set out to do.
Mhm.
And the question is, how much more, or is there any more that needs to be done? And I think that filters into a number of the projects that you suggest. So I'm going to go around the table. My sort of question will be, in addition to interpreting your existing statute,
Mhm.
is there a need for amendments to the statute to allow you to do the things that you think you would like to be able to do, but maybe can't because restrictions on your legislation? And that's just something to keep in the background that maybe somebody else's questions too. So Peter.
You want to answer that question?
I'm happy to answer.
Sure.
So, you know, I think with the planning process, we're going to be exploring that. I do think there is, and this again has been eye-opening to me. Because we are overseen by the state legislature, it's not a slam dunk that when you ask for something at the state legislature that you get for what you ask for. So I think there's an important component of considering how important it is and whether or not, and working with EEA to say what can we be doing? What can't we be doing? Where are our boundaries? I don't think that there's no answer yet to that. I think that the goal would be able to do everything we want to do within our current act. And to be very strategic if there's changes that need to be made. So.
Thank you.
I may have missed this, but you meant, if I understood you correctly, the land bank holds about 3,400 acres. You said the Conservation Foundation holds almost 3 times that much.
They do, yeah.
All right, who are they and what's their structure?
They're a private nonprofit, so they're board led and they're donation based and funding. And their mission is primarily really conservation of open space for, they're not public, they're private, for natural resources, rare and endangered species, habitats, ecological health of the island. They're very focused on the environment. And so they've started to do more and more research over time. So I like to joke around because I come from a science background that we don't really do research at the land bank. We just use their research. And then we implement it. So they're quite research oriented in terms of environmental health and well-being of the island.
Is there any public information on this private entity?
Yes, they have a website, the Nantucket Conservation Foundation, NCF. They also do a number of walks, talks. They actually have a pretty large project initiated to do a milestone crossing facility, which is sort of a compilation of buildings for them. They're taking their offices and some other sciencey buildings and putting them all out by the bogs. They actually spoke at the last land bank meeting on that project, which they're kicking off. And there's some housing involved too.
Just one last follow-up.
Yeah.
And what, if anything, are they doing with regard to the issue of affordable housing?
You should ask that. I'm sorry.
We just go around. I'm good.
I also serve as a director of the Sconset Trust, and we are happy to partner with you and Sconset.
It's
But
fantastic.
as you watch all these conservation groups, we're at the point there is no more land or not strategic land that fits,
Right.
that you move into ways to make the land useful educationally, as well as the trust has bought several historic buildings within Sconset for housing for people that work in the restaurants. Even our mail clerk has no housing. And so, this is a critical function of the village to try and match that and move not away from land conservation, but to incorporate it. And I think NCF is doing the same thing. They have an open house next Wednesday if you wanted to tour their project. You just have to register online. And they're a partner of ours as well. They're much bigger. We look like an ant next to them.
Yes.
I appreciate what the land bank does. And I also appreciate the pressure that's on you to say, you have enough. What can you do to help us? And it is this push and pull that can be achieved through zoning, but your mission is specific enough that you don't have a lot of play. But I appreciate also the mitigation strategies, because we have that with the Ruddock Common that blends into NCF land. If we have a fire, we endanger people's housing and everything else, let alone animals and rare species. So it is a lot to juggle, and all I can say is I appreciate what the land bank does.
Thank you.
And we're glad to have Mark Donato kind of there since he's a familiar
Yeah.
face, but they're all very talented commissioners,
Mhm.
and we are deeply appreciative for the work.
Yeah, it was,
Yep.
yeah. I'm not gonna be quite as calm.
That's good.
The whole area of affordable housing is something that's, we all agree is critical to the survival of the way of life that we have here.
Mhm.
And the land bank does very little in terms of trying to assist in addressing that issue. Yeah, you gave $350,000 to buy that piece of land on Wiggles Way. And that was great. But it seems to me that a lot of the property that you've bought over the years doesn't really serve a conservation issue. Well, it's conservation in the sense that it's not being built on. For example, that sort of park on Angola and North Mill Streets. You probably don't even know about it.
I
It's
do
a
know
little
about it.
space that had been a garden, a flower garden that two
Yep.
women ran,
Yep.
owned, and when they passed,
Right.
half of it was sold
Mhm.
to a developer and the other half
Yes, it's the
the
garden
land
by the
bank
state.
board. And we live very near there, and if somebody is sitting on that bench 10 times a week, it's a lot,
Mhm.
because it's barely used. Yet it would be ideal location for housing. It's right across the street from the pony farm, so it'd be nice
Right.
for families and all. And at the same time, you have these houses next to the galley on that property, which is that beach property, was a great purchase. Why can't you move those houses to that piece of land and create probably a half a dozen apartments in that space? It seems like, to me, like an excellent use of a piece of property that doesn't necessarily meet the land bank's primary objectives anymore, yet would have a big impact on the affordable housing issue.
Right. I mean, these are good questions, and I'm actually really glad you asked that. Because these are the things that we're grappling with. So there's a couple things that we are restricted by. Okay, the first one is called Article 97, and this is actually statewide legislation, and Article 97 is the Public Lands Protection Act, and it's a Massachusetts state thing, and the town is actually beholden to it too. So when you purchase something for Article 97 purposes, you are not allowed to transition its use into anything else without a vote of 2/3 of town meeting, which I think we could get, and a vote of the state legislature. And there's been extensive court cases surrounding the transition actually of public land to affordable housing. And so there's precedent surrounding that. Because of the way that parcel was purchased and because it was a garden, we can't transition it to affordable housing without, like I said, doing all these steps and risking litigation on the backside. However, there are other opportunities for us to do housing, and I think we're pretty quiet about them. So we have staff housing in certain areas, and one of them is 159 Hummock Pond Road, and there's some stuff over on 30 Mizzen Mast, and we've really looked recently at what are the available parcels that could be used for housing. The other thing I will tell you is any acquisition that comes across our desk, if it is suitable for housing, goes to the housing groups immediately for, is there a way we can collaborate on this? Is there a way we can work together? We are in the process of moving. There's 6 units at 41 Jefferson, the beach that you're talking about. There's 6 units there. They're all full right now. by next spring, they're going to be moved to two different locations, which are in the process of being determined. And they will all be reused as housing. And there's actually going to be 5 that are reused because one, we can't, because it's a middle unit, it's gonna not work well to reuse it. But the land bank took out all the parts, we stripped it to the bones, and then we had Habitat and reused what we could, and then we'd Habitat come and take everything else that they wanted. So we're trying to make sure that that's all reused. So those units are actually going to be reused as housing, and the land bank is completely committed to that project. And right now, we're slated to have it, because we're public, so it has to be through a procurement process. So it's actually going to hopefully, if everything lines up perfectly, in mid-February next year, we will have a contractor on board to move those houses. So, but we're in the process already. Mhm.
I didn't fully appreciate your kind of unique structure with the state. And I suspect it has a lot to do with the tax funding. But one of the concerns that I would voice is what you do is primarily a local issue and a very large local issue. I just worry that when it gets trapped in the Massachusetts legislature, that they won't have the same priorities. And how do you manage that? Is there anything we can do to help you? Because I have zero confidence in the Massachusetts legislature.
It's interesting. This is something, like I said, this is really new to me because I am new to this job, and I've been amazed at how that works, right? And how you bring things up. The other thing I did this week, and I did previously a couple months ago, was testify for the transfer fee, because that's something that the land bank is really supportive of. We said we would administrate, because we already administrate a transfer fee, we'll administrate an affordable housing transfer fee, and, basically say, hey, great, we know how to do this, we'll do it all, and here's the money. You guys are housing experts, right? But I think I want to believe that everyone's doing the right thing, right? And that everyone's working hard and doing their best. But what you were describing is a challenge. We're a local organization, but beholden to the state legislature. And I, to be quite honest with you, I don't have an answer as to how to navigate that yet. I think what I'm trying to do right now is really build relationships. I've spent a lot of time with Julian's here lately. I'm going up to meet with EEA at the end of the month. So, and like I said, this was an unexpected part of my job for me. So I'm trying to build relationships to figure out the answers, because I don't intuitively know.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty unique to the structure. I mean, I've not heard of other agencies, local agencies that have to
Yes,
interface that directly with the.
it's completely true. So.
Patty?
A question that somebody asked me to address. We have a deer issue around here. You have a lot of land. The salt licks that make the sterilization of
Mhm.
herds. You could be a big proponent of that in terms of your maintenance. Is that something that you're looking at?
So the state has, and I actually, our head of environmental and agricultural resources could speak to this more because she's been really involved in it. But the state has basically said that the contraception efforts are not going to work on Nantucket. And so that was all discussed. And
For deer.
For deer. yes.
Say different.
Sorry. Well, I'm speaking. for Natalie. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yes, so no, to be honest with you, I can't tell you exactly why, but that is not the route that they're taking. And hunting here and deer management is also regulated at the state level. So it's regulated by US Fish and Wildlife. And so we've been working with the deer biologist at US Fish and Wildlife, Martin Fian, to really look at the best ways to manage this, but it seems like that is not going to be an option and that it's not going to work. And again, I could put you in touch with our Emily Murphy, who can
Well, you hear
explain
these things, you hear
extensively.
that other Martha's Vineyard, other places are doing that, and you wonder, well, it sounds like something we could use. But you're addressing the continual problem.
Yes, there's a huge problem, and we're willing to admit that.
So Gary, you're next.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. Rachel, thank you for being here. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. My cardiologist has other plans for me, but anyway, I appreciate this stuff. And by the way, I'm very thankful. I know you were on the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee with me for some years, and I'm thrilled with the work that the Land Bank has been doing in cooperation with our committee to take care of a lot of these issues relating to our eroding shorelines. So you guys do great work. My question really is about golf a little bit. As a member of Mia Comet, frustrated as I have been over the years trying to get tee times, thought occurred to me that it seems to me that a few years ago when we had a meeting, we asked how many rounds were played at Mia Comet, and they told us, it was, I think 2 summers ago, there were 33,000 rounds of golf played at Mia Comet. So thinking about that, I said, you know, it seems to me that perhaps, and I don't know the answer to this, that's my question, perhaps the Mia Comet Golf or the golf operations are among the most and probably the most productive operations that the land bank engages in, which actually provides net income, which helps all your other projects, most of which are free. The only ones I know you charge for are golf and the racket club. Everything else is a great thing you do is free. And so I said, well, if you're doing so well, if golf is in fact turning a profit, which gives you additional income to spend on all your other needs, maybe it would be worth thinking about adding another 9 holes, a little 3-part course or something like that, because it'll solve the frustration of many people who can't get tee times, but also will provide additional operating revenue. What do you think about that idea?
It's an interesting idea, and I actually recently heard this, so you're not the first one to bring this to me this week, actually. So one thing that's interesting about golf is it is not actually a huge revenue generator. If you look at our annual report last year, they do a phenomenal job. They turn around a lot of tee times. Matt, Galvin, and Sean have really made it efficient so that as soon as somebody cancels, somebody else is slotted in. I know there's more demand than our spaces. This is something that we hear regularly. And so I do think it's worth looking at, is there a way to manage that? But it is not something that generates revenue. And I know it seems counterintuitive because people feel like the Mia Comet prices are high. But they are really designed to break even. And it took a long time for it to break even. So, and then basically how it works right now is that if they need to do capital projects, the land bank can fund those and then they can pay the land bank back, right, over time. So it's run as a separate entity, but it's designed to break even.
Thank you.
So following that up, sort of expanding on Gary's question, it would seem to me, because the real question is there unmet demand for public golf on the island?
Yes.
And if this is over time break-even proposition, it would seem to me that it would be something that you'd be looking at as a recreational opportunity, not particularly as a profit-generating opportunity.
Right. I mean, that would be the question. Is it an unmet need on the island? That would be the question, for sure.
Yeah, good. Are there any other questions here? There's a hand up someplace. Oh, here, yes, sir. Could you identify yourself? And only because I don't know you. Yeah.
Randy Ringer, I'm the president of the Tom Never Civic Association.
Yeah.
From what I heard you say, you do collaborative things with the town, even if it's not on property that you own. And so what I'm thinking is, what I'm asking, or to see if it's possible, the town has a plan out at the Tom Nevers Park to rehabilitate that hockey rink, turn it into tennis, pickleball, that sort of a thing. And with the advent of the new bike path
Mhm.
going down Tom Nevers Road, my expectation is that will become a more popular destination.
Mhm.
I don't have a lot of faith that the DPW is going to do what they say they're going to do, not because they're not competent, but because they just get other priorities come along.
Totally.
Is this the kind of thing you could step in and say, hey, on that particular piece of property, the hockey rink, we'll take the lead on it and actually fund it?
Right, so the land bank does really have to have a share, like, they have to have some ownership of the property they're working on. But that doesn't mean that that isn't an area that we could collaborate, because, you know, transitioning land between the town and the land bank is sort of one and the same. Granted, it still has to go through the state legislature, but it's really the lowest hurdle, right? Because we have sort of the same mode of operation, in that we're funded by public dollars. And so it's an interesting thing you bring up. I do actually have a ton of faith in Drew Patnode and Charlie Palachi, because I think they're amazing, but I do think this is an area, like I said, that we can explore collaborations, and I think that's something that's of interest.
But if you could put that on your list, that would be
Definitely.
great. The second thing to the golf, are there any plans to irrigate the fairways at the Sconset Golf Course?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. They are planning to irrigate the tees. So they're gonna build a second set of tees, and they're planning to irrigate the second set of tees, the forward tees. But there aren't plans right now. This year it has made a Dust Bowl.
I was there yesterday.
Yes. And so it definitely begs the question, right, in this environment, if we continue to have ongoing droughts at this level, you know, does irrigation make sense if you have a drought? But then again, the golf course is really mindful about how they water, and too much water does not benefit them from a fungus perspective and pests. So, so that's a really good question. I will definitely put that on my list to ask them. It is not in this year's plan, but like I said, they're gonna build forward tees and irrigate those. But they did replace a ton of the irrigation system recently, so that's an interesting idea.
Any other?
I
Yes,
have a
ma'am.
question. My name is Ingela. I walk all of the trails
I
and
know.
I walk across and I get lost. I also got first in by mistake one time. And I'm very happy for this fantastic thing that you're doing in the nature. Question is, I think you said that you have about 18 employees, maybe I assume administrative work. But I always think of the maintenance. I think you said about 2 million.
Mhm.
How many people are there working in very different ways? Because you have these tiny little trails and you have the wide ones. How many are actually working on that?
So our property management crew, that I will tell you, does work closely with our environmental department, so they slide over, they'll pull people mutually in both directions. Our property management crew has, I still can't believe I'm gonna say this out loud, they have a foreman and somebody who's in charge of land management, somebody who's in charge of structures and facilities, and somebody who's in charge of stewardship, which is like trash cleanup and safety. And then there's seasonals under that, and then maybe there's 2 additional year round. So really, that's 6 people that are doing all of this consistently. I don't know how they do it. I have,
And actually cutting and
yes,
6 people.
they do all the trail maintenance, they do all the mowing of our, we don't contract it, we contract out our like fancy gardens, right? Like Easy Street is contracted out to a landscaper or a local landscaper, or your North Mill Garden, the garden by the sea, is contracted out to a local landscaper. So, but most of the work, all the beach cleanup, all the park cleanup, is all done by staff. All the repairing of docks, boardwalks, houses. And then if something gets too hard, we contract it out.
So it's not only cutting and maintaining the trails, it's a lot of other.
Yep, we have a unbelievable property management team.
You do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes. Actually, you know, it's kind of fun. So if you open this booklet, which is highlighting the hike, in the back, it says a shout out to the land bank's dedicated field crew, and this includes a few of the environmental people, but these are the people who are doing exactly what you're talking about. And so we decided to give them a shout out for this because they do such an unbelievable job. So,
I have one question, Rachel, if we go back to Quidnet and the pond,
yeah,
which used to be open twice a year.
yes.
And then it stopped, and now we have PFAS in the foam, and we have blue-green algae that's deadly to animals in the
Mhm.
other ponds. What is the plan?
Plan for Sacagawea.
Even my comment was open.
Well,
before.
my comment's never opened anymore, and the reason is because that was
Right.
deemed freshwater-ish, right? Sacagawea's still usually opened, and they're trying to be more effective about their openings.
Is it a timing issue when they open it?
It's really has to do, I think there's a weather component, right? If it closes really quickly, that's not good. They want to maximize flushing. So I would say that the people who are working on Sacagawea Pond right now are Emma Morgan, who's the town's water quality specialist, and the Natural Resources Department, Jeff Carlson. The Quidnet Homeowners Association is a very active and thoughtful group that has played a huge role in it. And I think this year was probably one of the worst years for Sacagawea Pond, and I am curious what the trajectory will be at this point. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. But I do feel like the ability of people to recreate in that pond has been increasingly limited. And it really is why people live in that area. It was a huge part of their lives.
And you can't blame it all on pesticide runoff.
There's no one individual thing.
No.
I think, some of it, here's the thing, the interesting project will be the Maya Comet Dredge project to see how that impacts HABs and any sort of issues in that pond. It's the smallest pond, it's kind of like the easiest low hanging fruit to try this on. And I'm gonna be very, very curious. We've already had people inquiring about, can we dredge Hummock Pond? Because then what you're doing is you're taking everything that's in the bottom, which is basically feeding, a lot of these issues out and sort of restarting. But it's expensive and impactful, and so, but I'm curious.
But necessary, because
But
you've
could be
lost
necessary.
so much recreational space.
Yes, but could be necessary. So I'm closely watching the Maya Comet Dredge project to see how that plays out.
Is there a sort of time bomb coming up here? Because you mentioned in terms of wanting to flush the pond out, we've got a drought. And so there hasn't been any flushing. And it seems to me that you have a likely buildup that at some point the drought will end and you'll have more to flush than you had in a shorter period of time. Perhaps.
It depends, because sometimes the opposite can happen, because you can have rain events actually wash down, right? They wash all the fertilizers, all the dirt, all the sediment, all the everything. And so that stormwater runoff that I've sort of talked about, those rain events can actually create some of these blooms sometimes because of that. So they're providing additional inputs. So it's kind of a catch-22. I see what you're saying, but I don't know this.
In other words, the fertilizer may stay where it's supposed to be.
Right.
Because of the.
Because of the drought.
Yeah.
Right. There's a benefit of the drought.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Sort of going back to the
Mhm.
issue that I raised.
Yeah,
That property that we talked about may not be eligible for
Right.
housing because of the way it was purchased. But of the 4,000 acres that you guys own, there
Mhm.
must be other acreage that would not have to go through that ordeal of getting permission from the state legislature.
right. So there's very little of it, and we have looked at this. The other thing too is that in order to meet the affordable housing group's goals for costs of building or acquiring housing, they are bless you, they really would like to see housing that's on sewer and water. And the land bank actually has very little land that's on sewer and water. So it automatically becomes because we've looked at this, right? It's like an obvious, we should definitely look at this. Is there something that we should do about this? The places that we can put buildings are really the places that have buildings. But there are opportunities in those areas to put buildings, and so that's really where we're focused.
But Rachel, the bottom lines of the whole thing is that people will say, you've got money coming in because you're chartered to have continual money coming in. And where's that going? And you're kind of at a crossroads in terms of putting that idea on paper, and we're all curious to see how this ends up. But then that may become part of your charter in terms of what you purchase and what you don't purchase, because we can't seem to have much chance of getting the legislation changed, but you could put money into property where, can you deed it to housing? Is that a possibility?
These are all things that we're in the process of exploring, and it really has to do with legislature. And this is the nuance, that we're in the process of really delving into, right? Where are those restrictions? Where can we be pushing the edges? Where are there opportunities that we can be, collaborating? And none of it is simple. I wish it was, but I feel like in this planning process, that's really what we're looking at, is ways to be creative and think outside the box, but yet stay within the legal realm of what we're supposed to be doing. And those opportunities do exist. They're just unique, few and far between, and need to be identified, but we're working hard at it.
When, for instance, Hayes property came up and you negotiated with her about that, can that person that's not donating, but being paid by you to give the property, can they say with a caveat they want this option of affordable housing? Can that cross that bridge?
Yeah, yes. I mean, I would totally. Somebody could say, we want to work with the land bank, but we want to work with the land bank with affordable housing. I mean, I have not a lot, but I have conversations where, people come to the land bank and I say, oh, well, this is a really great parcel for affordable housing. Would you consider that? So I'm having those conversations just as much as they are. And again, I've really worked hard to understand what they're looking for in an effort to try and bring the best opportunities forward. But I think the landscape of acquisition has really changed. It's just flat out changed, and it's going to look very different for the land bank.
It seems to me that the Washington Street project is an example. While it's not affordable housing, it handles a real problem, a climate change problem, in a way for the city and the town. And that frees up other funds in the town to do other things. And so money's fungible, but good ideas are not. It's as you say, if people work together, it may be that this goal can be aided by that thing that has really nothing to do with that goal.
Right.
And
That's exactly how we're sort of thinking about it. If we can help here, then maybe it's freeing up funds to do something else over here. And Washington Street is a really good example. We don't own all of Washington Street, right? We own a portion of some of the lots. The town owns some of the lots. Some of the lots are private. But we're able to participate in that collaboration because we do own some of it. So as like with Tom Nevers, how does that work? Maybe there's an opportunity. So.
Unless there's more questions.
I just had one more question. A few weeks ago, we had the fellow from the DPW here, and he talked about the drainage and the whatnot. Is it in your charter so you can take some of this land and return it to its natural state, so you have more like the creeks and marshes to help with the flooding and the drainage? Is that within the purview of the land bank
Yes.
to reconfigure the land?
Yes. Yep. Yes. So we conclude.
Just one thing, our constituency, the non-voting taxpayers, many of us live in other parts of Massachusetts.
Right.
And we have representatives, and I can call Tommy Vitolo, who's the rep in from Brookline, who's an acquaintance of mine, and I could talk to him, as can hundreds, maybe thousands of other non-voting taxpayers. And you ought to figure out a way to leverage our relationships or connections within the legislature to get some of the things you might want done.
Interesting. That's a creative
I
idea.
think the committee as a whole would certainly be
Right.
amenable to helping you with that.
Well, thank you.
Just look where the tax bills go. That should help. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so I think that you plan to do something else this weekend?
well, you guys might also want to do something else this weekend.
No, this has been, I think, speaking for everybody, it's just been wonderful education and an opportunity, I think, to share ideas with
Yeah,
you and
definitely.
hear your ideas, part of it, which had been very, very gratifying to hear what is going on at the land bank beyond land acquisition.
Right.
And so I want to thank you very much, and you really should be an honorary member of this committee. It saved our presentation.
Yes.
I could come and be your IT tech. Thank you very much. Oh, right. Thank
Great,
you.
you have a shift with your sister-in-law at the fair?
Tomorrow,
Okay.
tomorrow morning, 10 to 12.
I figure you had another.
Oh,
job.
definitely.
The fair?
At the fair,
Yeah, I'll be at the fair this afternoon.
Excellent. Excellent. Everybody should go. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before all or many of the guests, leave, just wanted to know how you heard about this event, why you came, so we can continue our outreach to the community. Anybody wish to,
I feel like we've seen it posted and it's always been of interest. And then Patty happened to mention it to me a few days ago and I was like, I am gonna get that. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
This has been really fantastic. So thank you, Patty, for,
Yeah.
reminding us of the many things that go on, that we have good intentions, but yeah. Wonderful.
anybody else?
Also saw posting, calendar posting things to do, saw listed, and I had attended last Tuesday's meeting of the afternoon and listened in, and Kathy mentioned this meeting. I thought, well, I'll give that a try too. Very.
You heard from Kathy.
Our members are helping. Anybody else?
I also had it on my calendar and spoke to Patty and said, I'm going to make sure.
Is it the land bank, was it the land bank issue that drew you, or is it our work? that's
It
drawing
was
you?
the land bank and my interest in the deer herd population.
She was one that had the question.
Sure.
And that I was thinking that the land bank might take a leadership position on addressing how I don't think that a lot of the residents can recreate in the Nantucket land,
Sure.
whether it's privately owned or publicly owned, because of the deer population.
Are any of you, folks, full-time residents versus part-time versus voters versus non-voters?
I found out about it from my spouse here, but it was very helpful to go deep on a topic that there's a lot of discussion on. So in terms of your question about, future meetings or things of interest, being able to get the background so you're not at the mercy of, quick article and whatever. Without other issues facing the town, that's
One of the nice things,
dialogue.
about these meetings, at least for me, is this ability to go a little bit deeper than you typically see and ask some questions. And
Can we
they.
get a recording of the sewer talk? That's.
It's there.
It's online.
It's online.
These are all public meetings. We're a town appointed committee like any other town committee. And so if you go to the town's YouTube channel, you can see every meeting that's ever been held.
August 23rd, I think, is the date of that.
Brains.
And, you know, as you saw today, and as you'll see if you look back at that, the folks, the public employees are really quite exceptional and know their stuff and are willing to share their thoughts with you and interested in hearing your thoughts.
There's one other person that does this, does she want to recognize her?
Anybody else? Okay, so let's go. Steve, did you want to also add?
Yeah, when David Gray came 3 weeks ago, he offered a tour and I sent an email to all 14 other members and I only heard from 3. And we don't have to do it, but I really, if we're gonna do it, I'd like to have at least 4 or 5 people. Anybody?
What dates?
Well, he said anytime we wanted to come. I mean, I picked, 4 dates or times on the 18th, 19th or 22nd. I mean, but I haven't, he said just anytime you want to do it.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, I'll look at my calendar. I'd like to.
What dates did you have?
Well, I just picked out at random,
Do you want to recirculate your email?
yeah, I can resend the email
Yeah, no,
and if,
Yeah, I'll look up.
There's probably no interest in putting that up as an option for others that are non-voters in terms of the public.
I was gonna get your email so I can share it with you, but I mean, he said that anyone in the community who wants to,
Oh, I know, but people don't, and I'm just saying it's one more advertising for them, but
yeah, well, we can talk about that when we talk about PR and outreach.
So I mean, one possibility, I don't know if it is a possibility. We have, public meetings like this one, and we post them. And maybe one could make a
Field trip?
A field trip. And post it like that.
Everybody can talk.
But I don't know that you need a quorum and all the rest of this. It's just, an event or something. So we could investigate that and then you could publicize it and people would either show up or not show up and maybe have an
He
RSVP.
just said, the only thing he told me was, when was not the issue, was just tell them how many people are coming. So if you got 2 buses.
It would be unlikely.
Yeah. Okay.
Schools go there with field trips though.
So the next item, thanks Steve, is the Patty, an update on the town council study committee. Is there anything further?
Donna.
Donna, I'm sorry.
Donna.
Hi, everyone. No, there is nothing new to report. We're still waiting for Joe Grouse's report, our chairman.
He's coming back to the island today.
Sorry?
He's coming back to the island today.
Anything further on the noise bylaw that is?
Now it's with the select board, so you're just gonna wait for it to go be a warrant article that you see.
Yeah, okay. And then we have discussion of potential ACMBT positioning on STR proposals and status update. And this is, everybody may recall, last time we discussed this, there was, this was not really going to come up until the annual town meeting. Now there are rumors that there's likely to be a special town meeting. And therefore, the question will be, given whatever the articles are, if there is a special town meeting, whether we have a position, and our position has been up to this point that we are in in opposition to any legislation that discriminates against non-voting taxpayers. And it's just a sort of broad, simple point. But given the lay of the land, and the lay of the land, as I understand it now, is that there's at least one court decision which is on appeal, which basically says that there is no such thing as short-term rentals in Nantucket. And given that one of the reasons that this committee was created by the town had to do with taxation and the issues of the burden of taxation as they it was at a time when the town created a sort of two-level taxation program with different taxation percentages for non-voters than for voters. And they thought that, perhaps that would create issues that ought to be thought about and brought back to them by a committee like this one. My concern with the current lay of the land is that if one looks just at this from a tax point of view, currently about $8.5 million of the annual taxes are from short-term rentals. And that is maybe a 4 to 5% hole in the town's budget if indeed short-term renting is not allowed. And so I think we have an interest in seeing that that short-term renting be, unless somebody can come up with cuts on the one hand, or other sources of revenue on the other hand, that would replace that money. And that money will have to be raised by the property tax, the general property taxes. And so we have an interest for that reason in seeing that short-term renting that does not materially impact tax collections be continued. That's the way I'd put it. So it's to kick it off.
Yeah. Well, I think in a very sort of an addition to that, the various, I guess there's several proposals that are floating out there now, and they have different, they allow for different amounts of rental time. I think one is 49 days capped, one 70 days capped. I think it'd be interesting to find out from the revenue folks, what's the effect of that? Just that differential. They've got to figure out, obviously, also the window of time, because it makes a difference. But I think we ought to know, we need data. We talked about this last time. We need some data to help us. Last time around, when we were discussing this, there did not seem to be a discrimination issue on one of the, now there does seem to be one again. But putting that aside, as you say, I think we need to take a deeper dive. Is not only is it 8.5 million, but how much would it be affected by these two different proposals?
Yeah, and the collection, that particular tax, which is a tax which is, is authorized by the state and the Nantucket charges. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the financial impact on the island. It's the easy one to look. You can look at it and it's hard to argue. If you don't collect that money, it's not going to be here. But there's all this collateral.
That 8 million is the tax that property owners pay on their revenue, on their short-term rental revenue.
Right.
Was it 3% or something?
Whatever it is, I don't short-term rent, so I don't know, but either property owners pay it or the renters pay it.
11.7 goes to the state, and then I think 6 comes back to the town.
Some could argue.
The 6% goes is
6% of the short-term rental income.
Yes, so that 8.5 represents that 6% tax, which is paid by the renter, perhaps, it's added to their cost.
Yeah, and it varies by year.
It's about $125 million worth
But to your point, it's much higher because you've got the food, the
Yeah,
gasoline.
exactly.
But I don't know how we would collect that. That's the
No.
problem.
But some could
But
argue,
there is a multiplier effect.
That's right, that's right.
but some could argue there's a trade-off, that something that the quality of life, quote unquote, has some value, what have you, but we can't do any, until we have some data, we're talking
Right.
in the stratosphere.
So-
We've got some people online.
So I think that just to go on, one thing that comes out of the discussion so far is perhaps a letter which I can send to the town, asking for whether they've done any performance, and if they haven't, whether they should be doing performance
Mhm.
to
Model.
do a sort of best model
Both
of
the direct
what
and
these
indirect
effects ought to be.
Obviously.
Because it seems to me that, voters ought to know what what the consequences of their votes are.
Yeah.
But maybe you guys can just enlighten me what you think. Hampton's just put in this, limit, was it a week or 2 weeks for rentals,
Mhm.
short-term rentals? And that to me seems like that would answer the whole question, because you're not gonna win on the taxation, I don't think, although it's a very good point. You need the taxation, but you need the quality of life, and that's what started this whole thing, is the quality of the rentals and people getting upset because of noise. So if you put in at least a week requirement, you might stop some of the 2 or 3 day party rental. You still have your income from your,
I think that's in both. I think that those are in, but that's in both proposals now. And
is it being proposed?
during the high season, during the high season between July 1st and September 1st.
So
I
that's in
believe.
the docket.
Well, it's in there's nothing that's on the
Well,
docket
no,
yet,
but
but
I
in the
mean-
ones that are being discussed, that provision that there would be limitation on, that it would be a minimum of 7 days is in both, I believe, right now.
Oh,
They got rid of the SR10, but keep SR
Well,
20.
yeah,
So there's no zoning differentiation anymore.
no, I believe, well, one of them does, one of them has it and one doesn't.
This is from Megan Trudell, so this is from the town's point of
Yeah.
view. They,
I just saw one, I mean, the one I'm looking at right now does have restrictions.
I just talked to her
Would it be
yesterday.
wrong for us
That they're
just to
dropping.
ask for the.
They're dropping off.
Yeah, it won't, all zones will be.
Okay. All right.
Which-
But there are various levels of granularity in terms of the model that one can go to.
Somebody has,
Yeah.
must have put together an economic model of
Nope.
the consequences.
Don't be so sure.
But maybe asking for that would be a nice first.
Yeah, so right now, the town
Okay.
doesn't know
Really
how
look
much.
Okay, one at a time, one at a time. Let's take, we have,
Okay, just wanted to
we
answer
have,
this question.
maybe Dave Iverson first,
Oh, okay.
and then we have Donna and Pam.
Well,
Donna's hand was up long
may
before
I
mine.
speak?
No,
I'd be-
excuse me, I've just called on David Iverson, who is about to ask a question or make a statement.
Donna's hand was up long before mine, but I just want to clarify something. The restrictions by zoning district are now out of the second draft. So there's it's island-wide is the restriction being proposed on both of the different possible warrant articles. The date currently of the restrictions is June 15th through September 15th, and that would be on the 7-day minimum rental and 7 contracts. From my perspective, not speaking for the planning board, the planning board's going to first look at this on the 25th of this month. So I would encourage all of you all to dial in or come to the meeting. There won't be an opportunity for public comment because this will really be the first time the board has an opportunity to discuss it. But with that said, I foresee some change in those numbers maybe, but that's for the board to decide. Thank you.
And thank you for your participation, David.
Yes.
Donna,
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was going to suggest, for additional input, and I was going to propose that as we invite experts from our different town committees, that we invite Dave Iverson to speak, and another time invite Arthur Reed to speak. And I believe Carolyn also, although since we've already spoken to her and she's spoken to us, but I think these two committees should speak to us so we have a chance to ask questions, gain more information about their proposals. And that gives us more information to make a decision.
that's what we're doing.
What's the?
Well,
That's exactly what
we
we're
haven't
doing.
invited Arthur Reed formally. And Dave is here, which is wonderful. But perhaps we should spend more time listening to Dave at a meeting and listening to Arthur at a meeting.
Yeah, so there's the 25th that I suggest that we find out what the planning board's gonna do, because Dave's the chairman of the planning board, where they are. Pam Swan. Pam, unmute yourself.
Thanks, Peter. Yep, I got it. I actually wanted to echo your comments about collateral damage. And I know early on, Kathy, you brought up the issue of the festivals and things that we have in the spring on the island, but I find the September 15th date a little worrisome too. Most of the economy right now on the weekends here is thriving due to the wedding industry. And last weekend, when my daughter got married, there were 24 weddings on the island. At least 70 of our guests stayed in short-term rentals or in Airbnb kinds of things for 4 nights or 5 nights. That's not going to happen if it's a September 15th date. And I just think, there are definitely things going on in the economy, be it festivals, weddings, various events that kind of support the shoulder season that will be impacted if we go to a week or a 2-week limitation without better looking at the dates.
Yeah,
On the other side of that, is that somehow after Labor Day, we all sort of found it was wonderful that the island was not very crowded. So maybe some weddings will go elsewhere. Not necessarily a big deal from my personal standpoint.
Well, that's true, but I think if you talk to the businesses on the island, the caterers and et cetera, the florists, they're gonna be concerned about some of that business.
No doubt.
Yeah. Gary.
Thanks, Peter. I think you guys you're getting way off base when you start saying that the loss of $8 million is something we should decide to worry about, when that's the job of the finance committee. If they've decided to do something silly and there were no short-term rentals and they lost the $8 million, but it wouldn't affect non-voting taxpayers in any discriminatory way, the finance committee would figure out what to do about that. Yes, our rates will go up. The locals' rates will go up. Yes, they have their discount. The rates will still go up with the discount. That is not our job. We are not the finance committee. And for us to start worrying about total loss of revenue, a minor amount like $8 million when we're talking about a $300 million enterprise anyway, is just, to me, going off base. That is not our charter. That is not our mission. If we're not being discriminated against, then the town finance committee and capital committee, they're going to have to figure out how to deal with that, not us.
Well, it's going to come, but the fact of the matter is, Gary, and I hear you, and we've talked about this many, this theme has been with us for some time. But it's going to go to the finance committee, it'll go to the planning committee, and it's going to come then to the town select board. And they're looking for our advice. That's what we've been chartered to do. And I think it may be, whether we may have more impact by getting involved earlier rather than later. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Don, you have your hand up?
No,
There's just a random hand. Okay, Donna?
No, yeah, I just want to say I agree with Gary. I think we're off base.
That, anybody else?
It's an important topic to me, and I don't have a vote. The townsfolk, I'm reliant on their decisions about something that'll impact me financially, and my future, my children being able to keep this house on the island. So, it does have an impact on people who are non-voters. It is an important topic to us.
It has I agree. Anybody else? So the question is, I think what I will do, and I don't think this requires action by this group, is to seek information or put another way, sort of prod the town to develop information if it hasn't already that can be made public about what some of the financial consequences. And in this case, it's the if nothing passes scenario, because we've had, was it 2 or 3 annual meetings where nothing has passed, and given the current legal situation, that could create a big problem.
so just on the data part, so the renewals for next season's emails have gone out to people, so that's just something people should know. And then the only thing they collect when you renew your information is how many days you rented. So there's no financial information collected, although chapter 338 has a provision for requiring people to submit the financials, to submit additional information. They don't have a means to do that yet. So they don't have any data right now. And so that's something that they're working on getting that so that there's a means to do it, and then they will start to have it. But you're probably going to run into, they don't have the data on the dollars and cents of how many people rent how many days, and then what kind of money that translates to, because they don't ask for any financial information now.
Okay. Well, what my understanding is what they do is they have
Objections.
They have either at the state level or at the town level, they know at least by the quarter how much money is coming in from the short-term rental.
Yeah, that's public data.
Yeah, and so that's, I think, at the
But to be able to look at it for 49 days versus 70, that they can't do.
Well, they can make some projections, I think.
If they knew how people rented, but they don't.
Yeah.
In fact, they can model it. You can model it. You can say, okay, if you do it this way, you can make hypotheticals as to how it might work.
And you do then sensitivity analyses, and you make decisions based on the data you have is the data you have.
I don't know how they estimate now. They're estimating lower revenues going forward in next year's budget.
Well, clearly, I mean, just short-term rentals have gone, just anecdotally, I mean, I can tell in our neighborhood, they've gone down.
But maybe where we can be helpful in some input is just any decision of this magnitude has to have an economic foundation to it. And if we don't have the data today, maybe you can set it in motion to get it tomorrow. But this short-term rentals has been going on for years, and there's no resolution in sight. So having some data, I think, is not a bad thing.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
think the town would be well served having economic data for most decisions.
If nothing else, it's the implication of asking for this and talking about it is you need to be thinking about what you're doing and the consequences. And that's that. Okay, so let's see. Oh, so the last thing is we received a letter from the affordable housing folks on the island seeking some support for the seasonal resident support of H 2903, which I believe was raised in the House or in the legislature in the last week.
Transfer tax.
This is the 0.5% transfer tax to support affordable housing. And is this something that we want to write something on behalf of seasonal renters to support, not to support, say something, say nothing. It's another tax issue.
Yeah, I think
That's one.
one of the things is we have to understand the ramifications. You know, right now you have a 2% tax. Maybe they could lower that to 1.5 for the land bank. You know, at some point, the tax on real estate is gonna put a damper on the transactions. You know, so I think we could be in a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
Because once they pile on 0.5% for this, there's gonna be 0.5% for the sewer, there's gonna be another 0.5% for the new airport. I think it's a slippery slope.
See, I have to disagree with that because I just find it amazing that there's no upper limit evidently to what people will pay. And if it slows down the market in the long run, I'm not talking about, money in your pocket this year or next year, but in the long run, isn't it better for Nantucket not to be on this huge upwards trend to do transactions? I mean, when you get, young 35-year-olds spending 700,000 to join Westmore, I don't think we have an issue here.
Well, the issue I have is more conceptual. I just think that tacking on additional taxes because there's a large source of wealthy people that are a target of opportunity is the wrong way to go down. And I'm concerned of us endorsing this and yet another one, because I think once this dam breaks, you're gonna see all kinds of additions to that tax, and it won't be 2%, it'll be 6 or 8% before the dust
I
settles.
also think this goes beyond, this may get into Gary, this may get to where Gary is going. I mean, this may be beyond, really beyond our can here. I don't think we've taken a position on this kind of granular stuff, as non-voting taxpayers. Yes, we are supportive of affordable housing, but how that's done is not something we have gotten into the weeds on.
And who was it that asked us? I don't know the name.
Housing Coalition, I think.
Who was it? Is it a public entity that asked us to take a position?
I thought they were
Okay,
asking for individual call, right? Because it's
Oh, well, that they can
statistically.
do. I mean, anybody, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
they're looking for statistics. Anytime we try and move something in the federal government, you're to call your senator and congressman and they tabulate how many people said for
We don't-
or against. This is, I think.
we don't have a mailing list, so it's really something we can't do.
It's just circulate it in your maybe PR that this is another avenue for a non-resident to support it if they are in support.
Yeah, but this has been all over the place. I mean, there's already a public, I mean, this has been all over the
And they
place.
had their meeting last week. Rachel went to it.
But we have so little opportunity, going to what you're saying, we have so little opportunity to make an effect. And if we contact the legislatures from our, supposedly representing a huge portion of people on the island, that's got to speak to something. So every avenue we have, we should take, to try and, get the point.
Yeah, but this may be the sort of thing that you were talking about earlier, that this is really something that has the most effects. This something is writing letters to those people who actually have representatives because they live elsewhere in Mass. Yeah. But I'm kind of right exactly where you are, in terms of, the slippery slope.
I think it's a very dangerous precedent.
I don't think they're gonna solve the housing problem without this
Yeah,
tax.
and I'm
So
where you are
just
too.
walked away from supporting the people who make your life happy here.
Yeah.
So,
Captain Commander, the lesser of two weevils.
yeah, so I don't see it as a slippery slope. I see it as a necessary step.
Okay, so I think does anyone want to make a motion on this or not, or?
Let's, we got, what's the next?
Peter? Hi.
It's gotta be crazy.
I'm on Zoom. I think whatever we decide, I don't see it as a problem to put, let's say, a minimum of maybe $10 million sale and then put a percentage on for affordable housing. I'd rather leave the land bank doing what they're doing. It was an excellent presentation today. But I do think saying not 2 million, 5 million, 7 million, but some sort of a beginning. Because
It
it's
has
true,
gone
if you're
down.
spending $700,000 for Westmore and they don't even have a yacht club per se, whoever's going to be spending that kind of money, doesn't mean a thing. And these are people who have 2, 3, 4 homes around the world. What's the difference?
I think it's a $2 million minimum already. Dave maybe knows.
No, it's 1 million.
Generate,
No,
we're talking about generate.
I'm sorry, Gary, I think it's 2 million, Gary.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so I think it's everything north of 2 million, and let's not forget, this is $5,000 on every million. $5,000 on every million. So it's not a lot off of a sale. If you sell a house for 2.5, that's $2,500 that will go to affordable housing. So I understand you guys concerned that it's creep and what's next, but I really think it's reasonable and it's a small price to pay to give people reliable and secure housing.
I agree.
I agree.
Well, the question is,
How
the
much
question
is
is,
generated?
the question is whether we take a position. I mean, in other words, what is it we can do? I mean, every individual non-voting taxpayer should be writing their their state legislative person. So the only question is, do we as a group write a separate letter? That's really the only,
I
otherwise.
think you're writing a letter in support of a policy that the town feels
Right.
is the only solution.
Understood. So the question is, do we do that individually or do we do that as a group? That's what seems to me to be the question.
Well, individually, people aren't gonna do it. I mean, you can write a letter on anything you want, but people don't do it. Unless you give them a few people will do it if you
Right.
give them
Right, and then, and listen, I'm not taking a position on it. I mean, the other question you have to ask is, we quote unquote represent non-voting taxpayers. Is that something that, non-voting tax? I assume it is, but.
The town raises 40 million. That's okay.
Why don't we do on this until the next meeting?
I think we should discuss it at the next meeting and figure out when this is gonna be.
But not every.
Let's have some water. Let's left. So why don't we're gonna discuss this more at the next meeting. And then the question is, when might that be? So anybody have suggestions for a date for the next
We're not
meeting?
going into.
We're on a 3-week,
Yeah, well, we've come to the end of our summer schedule.
Yeah, so we're gonna.
And now the question is, what do we do?
We don't do.
Let's anticipate that there will be a special town meeting,
Then we definitely.
which would be on, as I understand, election day in November.
So it should be in October.
And so that's 2 weeks, two months from now, basically. So we should have a,
October meeting.
so when in October?
Well, let me take a look.
Look at this.
Peter, where did you hear that story? I saw the select board meeting on Wednesday night, and they were talking about the next annual town meeting next April. They were not talking at all about the possibility of a special town meeting between now and next April. So where did you get that rumor from? I never heard it.
It could be correct or incorrect, but.
Citizen articles.
We still need to schedule the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There were 3 citizen articles floating out there. Any one of them being submitted would trigger a special town meeting.
But how much time, how much notice do you have to give to?
If a citizen article is submitted, it forces town meeting within 45 days. And then they will open up the warrant to other petitions that people might have, but only for 24 to 48 hours. And the town can then put in whatever they want to put in as well, because they've got a longer time frame they can do it. So
so what is the deadline for the filing of a citizen article to trigger a special town meeting?
probably we'll count about 6 weeks back from, or 45 days back from November 4th, for example. So it's pretty soon.
Yeah. So why don't we plan the next meeting? And if it turns out that we don't need it, we can cancel
So
it.
let's do it for October 11th, which is Columbus Day weekend. People probably are here, more people here than not, or can we do?
probably most people.
Oh,
No, okay, no, that won't work then.
I don't know where I'm.
we might need to do it we might just have regular Zoom.
Okay, well, October 11th would be.
Yeah.
Personally would be.
I'll be back the 25th on.
Yeah, I'm here the 25th and the 18th. I'm not here the 11th.
I'm 11th is the last time I'm here.
18th of.
Well, the 11th, if we have it the 11th, then gives us time to have another one if
Yeah,
we need it.
Yeah, I
Other-
agree. Okay, so
Yeah,
we
we
can
can
do that by
always-
Zoom.
with
Let's
Zoom.
do it 11th by Zoom.
Yeah, that works.
And when is it, but going back to what you said, when is the legislature out of session?
If I had my phone, I left it in the car, I'd look it up, but they have discrete time periods where they actually function.
They don't ever.
And it's not a particularly big number. Where they meet.
Yes, yeah, that's a.
Yeah, I can look that up.
But is October 11th too late for that, do you think, or?
When the town sent that out, it made it sound like this is more of a press. This is our last chance to get this through. But we've gone through this legislature
Before?
numerous times on the same issue.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
They don't
They don't
really respond
Yeah.
to what we're looking for.
Okay, all right, October 11th. then.
It wouldn't hurt for those who are for it to
Yeah.
write.
Oh, I think everybody's free to
Yes.
write what they want and something, carefully crafted along.
Yeah, no, and again, it's not that I'm not for
Yeah.
affordable housing. I just think tacking on.
There's this concern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a concern because I think this could be the first of many.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody care to move to adjourn?
I do.
To the game.
Oh,
I'm going to- I'm going.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
take care, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
So long.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Nicest town to live in
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Did you see that?
I didn't see it.
Yeah. My wife is